Hi guys, this is GSMDome and I'm here with the Nothing Phone 2 for an unboxing. We're dealing here with a handset which was launched in July 2023, and as usual, just like the predecessor, you're going to have to tear down the box in order to access it, so yeah, we did that already. There's an interesting bunch of accessories here focused on transparency, and the handset itself has evolved beyond the idea of a mid-range handset and towards, well, sort of a flagship. Now this pin has dropped, but let's cover it later on. So the price is around 671 euros, and compared to the predecessor, this one has more rounded edges around the backside. Keeps the transparency, keeps the glyph LED lighting, and becomes a bit bigger now that the screen is a 6.7 incher instead of a 6.55 incher. It's still got the metal frame and some of the iPhone aesthetics here, and adopts a dual camera with two 50 megapixel sensors. It's time for the unboxing. We're going to check out interface, special features, display, RAM, processor, and so forth. So this is the handset with its custom widgets, and now let's see what's inside the box. So Nothing Phone Generation 2. Things have changed. Nothing Phone even has an external brand, something like CMF. And inside the box we find this: safety, information, and warranty in this little envelope here, as well as this interesting pin used to access the slots. I'm talking about the nano SIM. It's transparent, looks pretty sci-fi, and of course a cable which goes from USB-C to USB-C. It has its own shade of transparency for this area here, although you're not seeing as much as you're seeing on the phone, where you can see the wireless charging coil, for example. Okay, so I'm going to put this back in here. The unboxing is pretty much done. No charger in the box, as things are being kept pretty slim. So, the handset now. It goes like this. It's got glass at the back and glass at the front side, measures 8.6 millimeters in thickness, and weighs a hefty 201.2 grams. Luckily, the IP certification has graduated to IP54, resilient to splash, dust, and water. We have an aluminum frame here and Gorilla Glass protection. I should mention the fact that there's a special LED here, a red LED, which shows that you're filming and lights up in red when you're doing that. Now, aside from that, you can definitely see the LED notification at the back side, glittering and showing up when you're having notifications, when you're getting a call, when you're using Google Assistant, and when you're charging the phone. For example, if I'm going to say something like, let's see, what's the weather like? What's the weather like? You can see it pulsing together with my voice, and that's just one example of the glyph interface in use, but I'm going to get back to that later. The format is pretty friendly, the device is pretty sturdy, although now it feels a bit more massive on account of the bigger screen. Nothing Phone 1 had a 6.55 inch screen. This one has an LTPO OLED 6.7 inch screen. The bezels are rather large for nowadays, but symmetrical. It shows 1 billion colors. It has 120 Hz refresh rate and also HDR10+ and a Full HD Plus resolution, plus always on display and Gorilla Glass protection, as well as a pre-applied from the factory screen protection. Now the processor available here is a Qualcomm. It's actually a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which was the most potent processor a year ago. It's accompanied by 8 gigs of RAM and 12 gigabytes of storage, and 128 or 256 gigabytes, 8 gigs of RAM or 12 gigs of RAM and 128 or 256 gigabytes of storage, but there's no microSD card slot. The battery has also been upgraded from 4500 mAh on the predecessor to 4700 mAh on this handset here. Now, aside from that, there's also pretty impressive charging, which is faster, 45 watts via wire, 15 watts wireless, and there's even reverse wireless charging at 5 watts, which is something that a flagship would include. For security, we have an under-display fingerprint scanner, which means it's of the optical variety, which was to be expected, as well as stereo speakers. One of them is here, the other one is, well, the earpiece in this slit here, which is basically invisible. There's no audio jack that we can see, but we do have Wi-Fi 6, there's a USB-C port here, 2.0, there's NFC, Bluetooth 5.3, GPS dual band, and of course 5G. Now, other things worth mentioning for the handset, well, the camera. You can definitely see the front camera cut in the screen, 32 megapixels in resolution, and on the back side, the recipe feels familiar. These are two 50 megapixel shooters. The main one has optical image stabilization f1.9. The secondary one is an ultra-wide shooter with 140 degrees f2.2 aperture and guess what? Autofocus for your macro needs. LED flash, dual LED actually. You can actually use these LEDs when you're filming or taking photos. It shoots 4K video 60 frames per second and the main sensor is a Sony IMX890. I should also mention that it takes 12.5 megapixel shots, it has a night mode, and the selfie camera has only fixed focus. This is the custom interface, doesn't look like anything you see on the market right now. For the camera, very minimalistic, time-lapse, panorama, macro, expert. We also have a portrait option with a few filters here and the variable aperture, actually the aperture which you can set up. There's this option here for the glyph fill light, putting toward the LEDs. There's the photo section, there's the video section in 4K at 60 frames per second, and a slow-mo for good measure. Not many options, which is an iPhone-like approach. Okay, now aside from that, I think it's time to cover, well, I think we actually can cover the interface right now. So we're dealing with a clean Android here. We're dealing with Android 13 actually, and I feel that it's time to tone down the brightness a little bit. So this is Android 13 with 3 years of Android updates, 4 years of security patches, and some custom widgets, which you just saw earlier. The custom widgets are those ones you can see here for the clock, for note-taking, even for the Play Store, and, well, calendar, and a few more. You can also opt for a black and white interface for the handset, and what else? It's a minimalistic approach. Some people may like it, some people may not. I have mixed feelings about it, if I'm being completely honest. Aside from that, well, there's the always on display, and there's even a feature, actually several features which are experimental and quite fine. You can connect to a Tesla and actually control it from the handset. You can show the AirPods icon and battery info. You have the enhanced touch response, and this one, glyph progress, which is pretty cool. So you have your Uber app installed. You can see that the car is coming courtesy of these LEDs here, which is pretty fine if you ask me. So you can track progress, and that's just one app of progress tracking. There should be several more. Now, as far as the actual glyphs are concerned, we have dozens, if not hundreds of LEDs here. Customizable, you go here, you can see here the ringtones. There's 10 of them, and this is one example. As parts of the interface are lighting up for you. There's the sound library. Okay. Glyph can also be used for notifications. You can also flip to glyph. You have the glyph timer and even a composer, so you can create your own ringtone. And that's pretty cool. Volume indicator, Google Assistant, charging meter, and progress. Those are the things that you can do with the glyph interface. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. This has been the unboxing of the Nothing Phone 2. We're already testing it, we have a hefty gallery, and I sure hope that the camera has been upgraded from the predecessor. I remember not being that impressed by the predecessor. Well, let's see. Also curious about the processor and the fast charging. That's it from GSMDome.com. This has been the unboxing of the Nothing Phone 2. We'll be back with more soon.